Tonight, a former San Diego NCIS agent is blowing the whistle on what some call a potentially deadly gun loophole involving active duty members of the military.
For more than a year, our Team 10 investigative reporter Jennifer Kastner has pressed local military officials for answers about its mentally ill patients. The concern is that this could contribute to suicides, even mass shootings.
That's exactly right. This is alarming. The former agent says it's not about if, it is about when. San Diego's biggest military hospital, Balboa, is telling us that it's following federal law, but state law is different, and some say that difference could have fatal consequences.
I hope people see this. I hope people are upset. I hope people are worried.
Joel Mullen is finally ready to go on camera now that he's retired from being an agent with NCIS, or Naval Criminal Investigative Service. We first met him last year when he wanted to blow the whistle on what he calls a major loophole in the military mental health system that some believe could put weapons in the hands of suicidal or homicidal people.
FBI got a hint that I had been talking to you. And they basically, my supervisor threatened to kick me off the JTTF.
The Joint Terrorism Task Force. Loopholes and lapses in background checks have played a role in America's mass shootings. Take the Sutherland Springs massacre, where 26 were left dead. The former airman's history of domestic violence banned him from legally buying a gun, but he did so anyway because the Air Force failed to have his criminal history submitted to the federal database for background checks. Mullen says we need to look at a different loophole, one involving mental health that you're about to watch. To date, it has not contributed to any shootings we're aware of, but he believes it's only a matter of time.
I hope to God it gets fixed before somebody dies.
We're looking at two types of people, civilians and active duty service members. Let's start with civilians. If you're a civilian in California and you've been admitted to a hospital on an involuntary mental health hold, commonly known as a 5150, by state law, the hospital has to report your information to the California Department of Justice, or Cal DOJ, using a portal called the Mental Health Reporting System. State law generally bans you from owning firearms for 5 years, although you can petition state court to restore your access. Cal DOJ is then required to give your information to the FBI's National Instant Criminal Background Check System, or NICS, the federal database that gun sellers can access to verify whether potential buyers are eligible to purchase guns. If you've been banned from owning a gun, NICS will warn the seller. If you're an active duty service member admitted to Naval Medical Center San Diego, known as Balboa Hospital, on an involuntary mental health hold, what Balboa does do is notify your commanding officer and a treatment plan is made. If there's fear that you may harm others, law enforcement may be contacted. What Balboa does not do is send your information to Cal DOJ, which means that Cal DOJ does not send your information to NICS, the Federal Firearm Prohibition Database. It means that once you're discharged from the hospital, there is no record in the NICS database, so a gun seller has no way of knowing about your mental health history when you go to buy a gun.
Every day that this loophole exists, we run the risk of somebody getting killed or a mass shooting happening.
Mullen says this loophole is no one's fault. It's just that state law and federal law don't sync up.
This is not a gotcha. This is just, we need help.
Balboa referred us to the Department of Defense, or DoD, which sets the policy for all U.S. military medical facilities. In a statement to 10 News, the DoD writes in part, with regard to NICS, the DoD is following federal law as it pertains to mental illness. The federal law requires due process to restrict access to firearms, but the DoD says that an involuntary inpatient admission to a military facility is based solely on a medical finding, without an opportunity for a hearing by a court, board, commission, or other lawful authority.
You have to have due process. That is what the federal side is lacking, is the due process. Talking to my people at Balboa, there are mental health providers that have come and said, I want to put this person under a weapons prohibition. How do I do it? And there was no way for them to do it.
10 News was given copies of emails showing that even 3 years ago, a senior Balboa Hospital official wrote that the Navy was exploring whether its providers could report directly to NICS, but to date, approval for such direct reporting has not been given by higher authority. In part of a statement to 10 News, the Navy Bureau of Medicine says the health of its members is a top priority, and those on involuntary holds are only discharged when they're no longer deemed dangerous. The Department of Defense did not answer our question about any plans to make policy changes.
Why should your average viewer care about this?
The military trains people very well, but if there's some sort of mental illness where they might be prone to violence, they have more training than the average person. So that makes them more dangerous than the average person.
Mullen says it's going to take a congressperson to pick this issue up and take it to Washington to try getting federal policy changed. If you need mental health resources for current or former service members or their families, San Diego County has several free resources. We have that information on our website, 10news.com. In the studio tonight, Jennifer Kastner, 10 News.